Last time on the Skip and Josh podcast.
The first thing that popped into my head when I heard 30 million a season for 10 years was he would have accepted if it was 31.
You're listening to the Skip and Josh podcast with Skip Sherman and Josh Obadia.
I'm Josh in Toronto.
And I'm Skip in Montreal.
In today's episode, we discuss the Major League Baseball awards,
Bad NFL coaching decisions,
and the NHL concussion lawsuit.
But first, let's start with college basketball.
Okay, Skip, we have a jam-packed show this week, and I want to start off by correcting something that I said a few weeks ago. I had said to you that I don't really follow hockey until the baseball season is over, and that's only half true because I don't follow hockey until later in the season. But I haven't really followed hockey, even though baseball's been done for a few weeks now, because I've been following college basketball so much more this year.
Oh my Lord, okay.
There's a few reasons for that. I mean, one is, of course, Duke is playing really well and they haven't lost a game yet. But the main reason is there has never been this much coverage of Duke basketball in Canada ever before in our lifetime.
I was able to watch Duke versus Army.
I have not missed a Duke game this year. That's unheard of.
It is unheard of.
So anyway, the good news is I've gone to see all the games, and the last game, which Duke played against Eastern Michigan University.
Yeah.
It's worth mentioning that Brennan Besser and Mike Buckmeyer, who never play, they each played 2 minutes in that game.
Coach K, he's like letting them go free with 2 minutes of playing time.
Well, I think you had told me earlier in the day that the spread was it 23 or 32 or something?
It was 26 they were favored by against EMU.
Yeah, well, Duke won the game 84-46, so they covered easily. Mm-hmm. Now, you had mentioned the Army game that you got to watch.
Yeah.
That was actually a close game.
As you know, I was in Chicago this past week.
Okay. And
I got to see some of my work colleagues that I don't see all the time. Mm-hmm. So there's one person out there that I always talk college basketball with him. He's a pretty big fan. And he was like, he wasn't surprised about the Duke Army result. He's like, Army's always tough.
Yeah, I guess, they slow things down and they play tenacious defense. And it's going to be a lower scoring game. And, Duke's going to encounter that when they play a team like Virginia as well. So,
sure.
Obviously, the spread's going to be smaller if the score is a lower scoring game.
That's right.
But I have to tell you, obviously, I'm very pleased with how Duke is playing. I think, if I'm not mistaken, all these stats are insane. Like, all these stats have been coming out. This is the best start for, freshmen since, Jabari Parker or something like that. Yeah. And all kinds of silly stats, like both Zion Williamson and RJ Barrett have, I think, 75 points each, 3 games into the season. Yeah. But the stat that I could not believe was Zion Williamson's shooting percentage is, I think, 81%.
I know he hasn't missed very many shots. You see one game he was like 11 for 13, and then another game like he's not missing anything. Well, it's easy to not miss when you're dunking all the time.
You're right, but like 81% shooting percentage is insane. No one goes through a whole season and shoots 81%.
If you shoot 60%, you're leading the country.
Like if you're an 80% free throw shooter, that's very good.
Yeah.
So, anyhow, but there is something I have to. I'm gonna go back to the What Bugs Me segment. I'm going to put it in the middle here.
You're kidding me? Boy, are you bugging me, man. I'm going to nail. Ooh, I'm getting bugged now. Whoa, man.
Because there's something that bugs me about college basketball, and Duke is guilty of this as well. And I guess you could lump college football into this as well. But we're 3 games into this season, right?
Yeah.
We barely even know the players, and everyone's making predictions about this, that, and the other. And then what did I hear a week ago? This kid in high school has declared to play for Duke next year. I don't even want to hear about next year now. And every team does this. It's like, why are you doing this in November?
Well, what are they supposed to do? They're supposed to keep it a secret?
I don't know, but why do you have to declare what school you're going to a year before you go there?
I don't know.
when you and I went to university, What did we decide 6 months before we were going? And there was no press release when I said I was going to Concordia.
But we were not five-star college basketball players that people wanted to know where we were going.
Well,
I'm sure in his home state, it's big news, and his hometown.
It just bugs me to hear about stuff that's going to happen next year, and this year is only a week into the season.
Right.
But sticking with college basketball, there was...
I can't believe you want to talk so much about college basketball.
I do.
It wasn't even on my list.
Well, this is what I'm saying. I haven't even paid attention to hockey, so this is why I want to talk about college basketball. So I don't know if you noticed this week there was a rematch of the championship game. Villanova and Michigan played each other.
Sure, yeah.
And Michigan destroyed Villanova. I was stunned. I mean, obviously Villanova lost 4 starters, and they're not the same team that they were last year. But the fact that they were destroyed by Michigan was shocking to me, at least.
Michigan really has a great program going right now. You know, that they've been up and down throughout our life in terms of their relevance in college basketball, but they've really, really got something going, you know, and they lost players too. They had that guy, Wagner. Yeah, they lost guys too. But I don't know. You never know. I mean, it could just be one game, and you can't count. Villanova, certainly with Jay Wright, they built a really solid program. They've been really great for about 10 years already, right? So
they probably will still win the Big East, because I don't think that there's really any good teams left in the Big East. But they don't seem like title contenders, if you ask me.
No, well, they were loaded with
3 and 4 year players.
Yeah, 3 and 4 year players, right? Which makes a huge difference, you know.
For sure.
So, yeah.
So one other college basketball note. I don't know if you know that Jim Boeheim's son plays on Syracuse.
Oh, I didn't know about that.
Which is interesting. Now, I don't know how many minutes a game he plays or anything, but the funny thing was, so Jim Boeheim's been coaching at Syracuse for something like 25 years, right? I don't know how long.
Yeah.
Anyway, so during the game, the first game that his son played, they spelled his name wrong on his jersey.
You'd figure the guy's been his father's been coaching there for what, how many years? 30 years?
Something like that, at least 25 years.
I mean, as long as we've known Syracuse, he's been the coach. As long as from the first day that I ever watched a college basketball game, he was the coach.
Yeah.
And like, how many times has that name been spelled in press releases, programs, anything?
Now the one caveat is the coach doesn't have a jersey, so maybe they've never sewn it on a jersey before.
They still should get that right. That's a Natinals situation right there.
It is exactly a Natinals situation.
Yeah.
Anyway.
By the way, you mentioned last week or the week before about Bull.
Oh, yeah. He plays for Oregon.
There's some people that are talking about him as being one of the best players in the country.
So you asked me if he looks like his dad, and I finally saw him on television. He does look a little bit like his dad. He's very tall and skinny.
Yeah. But people are talking about, well, I mean, I don't know about the best player in the country, but certainly one of the most fun players to watch is what I've heard, you know? So definitely going to try to check out one of his games and see what it's all about.
Yeah, just a good idea.
I can't believe we talked about college basketball for so long.
Well, you know, we need to spread it around.
The National Hockey League. Because
you're saying that you don't follow hockey, or you haven't been following hockey that much. But there's something that happened this week in hockey that I really wanted to pick your brain about.
Okay, well, I have a bunch of hockey stuff too, so go.
So nothing to do with games, nothing to do with wins and losses, nothing to do with goals scoring.
Mm-hmm.
It's, as you know, this week the lawsuit against the NHL brought forth by a whole bunch of players, a group of players about concussions, was settled out of court this week, and they settled for $19 million, which I found was just a ridiculously low amount.
Mm-hmm.
People on both, I mean, obviously the NHL sort of claiming victory here, and I heard some of the players that were involved in the lawsuit were upset with the amount, but I mean, they settled, right? It's their lawyers. When there's a settlement, both sides have agreed, so neither side should be complaining. But what pissed me off is that, like, well, first of all, Gary Bettman went into the Hall of Fame the same day that this lawsuit was announced.
Made me vomit.
Me too. First thing is, whether you want to talk about whether he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame or not, let's just even put that aside. My feelings are no. But how is he in the Hall of Fame while he's still the commissioner?
Yeah, I asked the same question, and I don't have the answer to that.
the whole thing screams of like payoffs and favors, and like it's just absolutely ridiculous. Every player has to wait a certain amount of years before they're eligible. Shouldn't the same thing apply to commissioners and coaches and builders and all this? Like, it doesn't make sense.
I think Scotty Bowman got into the Hall of Fame while he was still coaching, and I don't have any other examples, but there is a precedent for it. I don't agree with it. I think you should have to be retired from whatever it is you're doing before you can get in.
Now, next year when there's a lockout,
are they going to take him out of the Hall of Fame?
Are people going to reconsider, and knowing that, it's the fourth lockout in his tenure, or even more? I don't even know how many there's been. And a whole season was canceled. A whole season was canceled while this guy was commissioner, and they put him in the Hall of Fame. Like, just that alone, he shouldn't be there. Now, I want to get back to the concussions. Well, go ahead.
Well, I have to give my rebuttal. I can't stand Gary Bettman. I want to hit him with a baseball bat every time I see him.
Right.
But the only thing that the owners care about is making money.
Right.
And since he's been the commissioner, the amount of money they've made has multiplied by, I don't know, maybe 100.
But the thing is, it's not the owners that vote for the Hall of Fame.
No, but it's the owners that pick the commissioner. So they're very happy with him. You and I might hate him, which we do, but they're very happy with him. And so if you're like, Wayne Gretzky's job was to score goals. He did that.
Yeah.
He got into the Hall of Fame. Gary Bettman's job is to make money. So he did that. So that's why he's in the Hall of Fame. Now, I still think he should have had to wait until he was retired before getting in. But he has done what he was hired to do.
Well, is the commissioner's sole job to make the owners money? I thought the commissioner is supposed to be also kind of well, it is in baseball. I can't read his the official job description in the NHL, but like, isn't there something in there about like what's good for the game and being kind of the gatekeeper and like the protector of the NHL and the logo and the brand and hockey and everything like that?
I don't know the answer to that. That's a good question. But he'll tell you that he is protecting the logo, that he is caring for the game. He'll say that if you ask him.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know. I don't necessarily agree. There's a lot of questionable things that he's done. But whatever. I can't stand him. Like, I had a dream that he was walking by me on the street and I punched him in the face.
That's a dream that you had, an actual dream.
Well, I mean, because it's possible, because he does come to Toronto, quite often, actually, I would think.
Don't get thrown in jail, Josh.
No. What? I'll be fine. Don't worry about it. I'll just yell profanity at him.
Yeah.
Can I get arrested for that?
No, but he hears that all the time. I bet you he can shut that out. When they all like boo him every time he comes out in any arena, he doesn't even care anymore.
He loves it actually now.
I think he kind of likes it. Yeah. So back to the concussions for a second, and I posted something on Facebook this week on my personal Facebook account. I read there's a lot of articles about the settlement and the concussions and all that stuff, and then there was a quote from Bettman from back in May of this year, while the lawsuit was ongoing, and he said, I wrote it down because I wanted to quote it accurately. Mm-hmm. When it comes to focusing on concussions and trying to understand them and how to treat them, we've been the leaders in the field. Now, the article and the quote goes on to talk about how important player safety is for the NHL and how they have a department of player safety. The guy that hands out the suspensions is, he's the head of the department of player safety. But this is what I don't understand. They've got this whole concussion thing going on. They're talking about how important understanding concussions is and how important player safety is. But the NHL is the only professional league in any sport, and I'm talking any sport, that fighting is allowed. So guys get punched in the head with a fist during a game. It's allowed under the rules of the game, and yet you're talking about how concussions are important. You don't think there's a correlation? He will never admit there's a correlation between CTE and concussions. Bettman's refused to admit that because they don't want to lose their lawsuit. But like, don't you think there's a correlation between punched in the head and concussions? Can't you see that?
I think there is a correlation. I'm not a doctor. He'll never admit that. He'll never admit that, but none of the commissioners are ever going to admit that because their lawyers have advised them never to admit that. And the truth is, there have been a lot of studies done, and you can say that there is a correlation, but I'm sure you can find doctors who tell you that there is no correlation.
Yeah, you're right.
Because it's not conclusive.
Yeah, you're right.
And again, I'm not a doctor, but getting back to this lawsuit.
Yeah.
Since you brought it up, I wasn't even going to talk about it, but I think that the settlement is a definite win for the NHL and a definite loss for the former players. I don't know why they agreed to that settlement, because each player is going to get $22,000. I don't know what $22,000 gets you these days. Not very much.
No.
So I'm stunned that they agreed to it. And I'm not surprised that the NHL agreed to it. But the other thing I didn't understand about the settlement is that in there, it states that the NHL is not taking any responsibility for any health issues or any injuries. So then if you're not taking any responsibility, then why are you paying out this sum? What is the reason for you paying it out?
I thought the same thing. They're like, okay, we've agreed that we're somehow at fault. That's why we're paying $19 million. Yet we're not admitting that we're at fault in anything.
Right.
Here's just take this money, but we didn't do anything wrong.
Right, exactly. So I mean, again, I'm not a lawyer either. Well,
the interesting thing is that the NHL has actually refused to comment on the settlement. There's no comments coming out of the NHL at all about the settlement, because there's 75 days where every single player in the lawsuit has to agree.
And some, by the way, have not. Some have already.
I know, and I know some are not going to. So, and actually, the $19 million payout is not going to happen, even if one player doesn't agree to settle.
Well, I know for a fact there are a few players who have said they're going to go to court on their own, not with this class action lawsuit.
Well, no, the whole thing is this wasn't a class action lawsuit. That's what happened.
Okay.
Because there was only a group of players, I don't know, 50, 100, I don't know what the number is.
I think it was about 200
big ruling,
players.
Yeah, the big ruling in the case was that the judge said they couldn't have a class action lawsuit. And again, we're not lawyers, but the class action lawsuit would have enabled them to get hundreds of or even thousands of ex-players to join the lawsuit. Anybody who ever played one game in the league would have been eligible for the as a plaintiff.
But this isn't that. This is different.
No, this isn't that.
You had to opt in before, and there are some players who actually are currently suffering from, I think, head trauma, who chose not to opt in because they were afraid, they didn't want to be alienated by the league. Some of them work for teams now, and they didn't want to lose their jobs.
Yeah. It's a big mess.
It is a big mess.
It's a big mess, and it's not going to get any better
now
until the NHL actually admits something.
Now, on the other hand, and I don't want to defend the league, the NHL or the NFL or any league at all. However, what the players are saying is that the NHL should have warned them that, hey, you could get injured playing this sport.
Oh, no, I agree with you on this.
I mean, don't the players know going in that you're playing a sport that's a physical sport that you might get injured? I mean, why does the league need to warn you about that?
And certainly at the time, no one knew about CTE and all this stuff if you're going back 20 years or even 10 years ago.
Right.
So, the NHL lawyers, I mean, obviously they have a case. It's a difficult case to prove that they're somehow culpable. But like with the whole I don't really care about the lawsuit. What bothers me is that they just refuse to admit that there's anything wrong, And
they have to do that because that's what their lawyers are telling them to do.
Starting right now, right? November 2018, concussions are a problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're a problem. Yet somehow guys are allowed to punch each other in the head during your games.
Yeah, although I think fighting is down this year, if I'm not mistaken.
It doesn't matter if it's down or if it's up or whatever. It's in the rules. 5 minutes for fighting, 2 minutes for instigating. It's something that the league is saying you can go ahead and do this, and it's part of the rules of our game. Like you just said, I just warned you not to get arrested by punching Gary Bettman in the face on the street. Mm-hmm. So you would get arrested for punching him on the street.
You're right.
Yet two guys in the NHL can punch each other to hell and beat each other down, and then 5 minutes to go in the box for 5 minutes and feel shame,
5 minutes for fighting. They had a hit song about 10 years ago, if you recall.
They did, yeah, I do.
I really like that song.
All right, we can get all worked up about the concussions. I'm supposed to have this conversation with Matt Sanderson, formerly of the Semi-Intellectual Musings podcast. He's starting his own podcast. Excuse me, I forget the name. Nooks and Crannies, I believe. It hasn't been released yet. So we're supposed to have a whole conversation about this, so stay tuned for that. What else did you want to talk about hockey?
Well, I'm going to give you a list of names, and you're going to tell me what they all have in common.
Oh, I love this. This is a little game show.
But let me finish. It's like about 10 names.
Oh, boy. I have to write them down.
No, you don't have to write them down. It's fine. You'll know right away.
Okay.
Zdeno Chara, Sidney Crosby, Andrei Vasilevsky, John Klingberg, Jonathan Quick, Victor Arvidsson, PK Subban, Austin Matthews, Brock Besser, and Paul Stastny.
They're all injured right now?
They're all injured. So this reminds me of that year, I think it was last year in the NFL, where all these star players got injured and it seemed like a new star player or two would go down every week.
Every week. Yeah, even in practice. Remember Deshaun Watson last year?
Yeah. So, I mean, the NHL can't be happy about this when like you've got 10 all-stars, and I think all these guys would be considered all-stars.
Or borderline at least,
are getting injured. And I mean, some of them are freak injuries. Some of them, of course, all they say is upper body injury or lower body injury. It's so annoying.
I hate it.
Because they never tell you anything.
Yeah.
But one of the reasons I bring this up is because, you know, gambling is now not frowned upon anymore in the United States.
No, actually, didn't the NHL just sign some kind of big deal with to allow gambling in some ways?
Exactly, yes, with two different, with MGM and also with DraftKings, I believe. So here's the thing. You know how gambling's been with the NFL forever. And the thing is, the injury report for the NFL comes out all the time, and they tell you exactly what the injury of the player is and how long he's expected to be out and whether he's probable or questionable or doubtful. So if you're going to allow gambling on the NHL, people are going to want to know, hey, is this guy injured? If he is, what is the injury? How long is he out? You know, they're going to want more detail. And so I think the NHL is going to have to start coughing up more information than what they've been coughing up until now.
I hope so. I mean, for the gamblers, we're not gamblers, but yeah, it seems like that's the next step, right? Although there's going to be so many people in hockey that are going to resist that. They're going to say, you know, if we tell him it's an ankle injury, they're going to target his ankle. But like in the NFL, don't you think they do that? You know, like
I don't know. The other, there's some more hockey news we need to touch on. Mm-hmm. Again, nothing that happened on the ice.
Right.
I was very upset to see that Tom Wilson's suspension was reduced from 20 to 14 games.
Oh, that was so stupid. I was so angry.
I was very upset about that. The only good thing about it was he had already served 16.
Oh, so they screwed up when they did the appeal, and
Well, this report that came out was like a 41-page report. That's probably why it took so long to type it up.
Does he get a 2-game credit now? So next suspension he can take 2 less?
No, but he does get some money back that he had lost, unfortunately.
Imagine he has a suspension credit.
Imagine that.
He can go out next game, elbow some guy in the head. The league's going to say, you're suspended for 2 games. He's like, here's my 2-game credit.
He's the one person who actually would need a suspension credit because he's going to get another one.
But the next one's going to be huge, don't you think? If they gave him a 20, the next one's going to be 30.
Oh, yeah. Oh, for sure.
Or 40.
Or 40, yeah. Like half a season.
Yeah. Because he's been suspended so many times, and all we hear from the NHL is that how, you know, your prior record is so important to the suspension. So...
And I think, if I'm not mistaken, his first game back, he scored a goal, but also ran into the goalie on the same play.
Yeah.
And the goal counted, and he got a penalty on the play, which I don't quite understand.
It's because I saw it. I saw the play, and it kind of made sense because the goal was already in the net, and then he ran into the goalie.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So the goal counted, but he still, you know, smashed the goalie.
Okay. And then the other hockey news I wanted to talk about, it seems like this happened so long ago, but I don't think we've talked about it on our show at all. Mm-hmm. And you can correct me if I'm wrong. But Thomas Plekanec finally retired.
Well, it's not such big news, but I mean, he came back to the Habs this year and was a 4th liner, and then he was a healthy scratch and he hardly played. Actually, I forgot he was on the team. All of a sudden, I heard one day the Habs are having a press conference. Plekanec's going to retire, and I was like, "Oh, he's still there."
Did you not notice that press conference was a little strange because, for one thing, somehow his salary is not going to count against the cap, and I'm not sure how the Canadiens pulled that off.
I don't know either.
the other thing was he was being asked questions like, hey, what if another team claims you off waivers? And he kept saying, no, I'm not playing.
They kind of forced him into retirement.
But yet he says, I'm going to go back home and play there.
Yeah, well.
So he's not retiring then.
Well, he's retiring from the NHL, but not from like the Czech league, I guess.
Anyway, it was just very strange how the whole thing unfolded.
He was a good player for the team for a long time, and wish him well. Never was a huge fan, never cared about him either way. He was always just there.
Major League Baseball.
I think we need to talk about baseball, even though the season ended a few weeks ago.
It's in my notes. I'd like to talk about the awards.
We have to talk about the awards. And I have, by the way, the predictions that you and I made before the season began.
Okay.
And neither of us did very well.
Okay.
I'll just recap the ones that we got right. We both got National League Rookie of the Year right with Ronald Acuna.
That was beautiful. That's the hardest one.
And you got American League Rookie of the Year correct with Shohei Ohtani.
Both Rookie of the Years. Can you imagine?
Yeah, that's it. Everything else was wrong, so I'm not even going to talk about it.
That's the list.
That's the list.
Well, I mean, I don't think anybody in anywhere in baseball predicted that Christian Yelich would win the MVP. That just came out of nowhere.
No, but we did talk about him on our preview show, how that was a big acquisition for the Brewers.
You're right, because you were very high on the Brewers, and you liked the fact that they got him and Kane, and that they were kind of making a move. Right?
Yeah, and it paid off for them.
And Blake Snell, I don't think anybody heard of before the season started. So,
no one would have predicted that. I think Jacob deGrom was very deserving, even though he won only 10 games. I have no interest in your won-loss record.
By the way, can we talk about Jacob deGrom for a sec?
Sure.
So Mike Wilbon, who you know very well, and you listen to him, read him. He's a big ESPN personality.
Mm-hmm.
He came out this week and basically said that he feels like the stat heads hijacked the award, and that's the only reason why deGrom won. And he's all mad about it. And he says that deGrom should never win. When you win 10, it's all about winning games, and he only won 10 games. Like.
Wilbon's a cranky old man that's got to get with the times. I
felt like asking him, like, does he go out for dinner at 5:00 now? Like, is he this old man?
Yeah.
Is he on his porch with like a broomsticks telling people, get off my lawn and like lower the music? Like, seriously, like this is such an ancient, old. I mean, it's like burying your head in the sand take. I was flabbergasted that he said this because it's so ridiculous. Because all you have to do is look at. I didn't write them all down, and I'm gonna misquote them all. But like, there's something like 10 or 13 games where deGrom pitched where he allowed 0 or 1 run, where the Mets didn't score any runs.
Mm-hmm.
When he pitched, and he went 8 innings in most of those games, and like, there's all these ridiculous stats about like. Like, if the Mets would have scored 1 run in a game he pitched, he would have won 15 games easily. Yeah,
I completely agree with you. The bad thing about this show is that we often agree. But here's another instance where I completely agree with you. I don't care about his won-loss record, especially that he was on a bad team. Wilbon is living in the dark ages.
It's the dark ages, really.
The fact that he calls, I know that he doesn't like analytics, but this isn't even analytics. This is just ERA.
Yeah.
That's not even, ERA is not a new stat in the last 5 or 10 years. It's been around forever.
It's been around for 100 years.
So,
right?
Yeah. So I don't, anyway, let him say what he wants to say.
Yeah.
He's been saying that all season long. When it looked like deGrom was going to win, he's been complaining about it. And then it finally happened.
Keep in mind, I bet you if Jacob deGrom pitched for the Chicago Cubs, had the exact same stats, he would be saying deGrom deserves to win the Cy Young.
Exactly.
He hates New York. He doesn't like anything out of New York.
Mm-hmm.
He has a huge inferiority complex, like with New York, like a lot of Chicago people do, unfortunately. And that's part of his take. It's part of his reasoning, and he can't deny it. He just can't.
I mean, New York people are quite arrogant, and they do think they are the best thing since sliced bread.
100%. But there's a reason behind it, Yeah. So how do you feel about the rest of the awards? Like, I think Blake Snell was deserving. I think deGrom was deserving. I think everyone knew Yelich was going to win the MVP, and I think everybody knew Mookie Betts was going to win the MVP.
Yeah, I'm fine with all of those. It was interesting that we got to see some tweets from Justin Verlander's wife again, which is always fun to see.
She was joking around.
I know.
Yeah.
But I mean, anytime she's in the news, it's a good thing.
Yeah, she's had a lower profile lately. I mean, I follow her on Instagram and Twitter and everything.
Well,
She's pregnant. The baby's coming soon.
No,
so
the baby came.
Oh, the baby was born.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know. Okay, great.
Come on, you got to get with it. You're usually on top of these things.
You're right. I don't know how I missed that.
I was actually a little bit surprised that Shohei Ohtani won Rookie of the Year because he missed a lot of the season due to injury. Yeah. And the other contenders, Gleyber Torres and Miguel Andujar, pretty much played the entire season.
Yeah.
Now, the tricky part is Andujar and Torres had similar numbers and they played on the same team. So how do you differentiate between one or the other? And that could be why Ohtani ended up winning the award.
He had nice stats. He had 285, 22 home runs.
But I guess the bottom line is that he pitched and he hit. And so how can you not give it to him?
It's just he pitched and he hit. So there you go. That's the whole thing.
It would have been interesting to see if he played a full season and didn't get injured, how much better his offensive numbers would have been.
They're talking about maybe next year he's only going to be a hitter.
Oh, he only will because he's going to have Tommy John surgery if he hasn't had it already, and so he can't throw, so he can only be a DH.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, is he? Are they ruling him out being a pitcher ever, or
no? But for next year, he's not going to pitch because pitchers take a full year to come back from Tommy John surgery.
Yeah,
but hitters can come back in a few months.
Well, especially if you don't ever have to throw, so he's just hitting.
Right, exactly. But that means what's going to happen with Albert Pujols? Because really, he became a DH in his, old age, even though he's not that old. So he's going to have to play a position, or they're going to have to get rid of him. But they can't get rid of him because that contract. They can't trade him.
I don't know. Well, they'll figure it out, I guess.
I'm just looking at the other awards. Are there any others we want to even talk about? Not really. The interesting thing about the awards this year, about a week before they announced the awards, MLB came out and announced 3 finalists for each award. And I don't remember them ever doing that before.
No, they take a page from the NHL awards. I think the next step is that they're going to have an awards show, like the NBA and the NHL do, right?
I wouldn't mind seeing that.
There's one thing in the awards buried very deep in the awards. Mm-hmm. They came out with the Gold Gloves.
Okay.
Now, there's one here that I almost threw up. Ian Kinsler won the Gold Glove in the American League for second base.
Really?
Now, yeah, exactly. I was like, okay, whatever. But I don't know how he fielded during the year. I don't know if he made a million great plays for the Red Sox and for the Angels where he was before, wherever he played before. I don't care what he did.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care what he did for 162 games in the regular season. He made one play in the playoffs. He fielded the ball over the bag and threw to first. It was the worst throw in history. First of all, he never should have thrown it.
Oh, yeah. Of course I remember that play. Of course I do.
He never should have thrown it. And second of all, it was the worst throw I've ever seen. Once he did decide to throw it.
By the way,
just for that play alone, he should be disqualified from the Gold Glove. He should not have been considered because any player who makes a play that bad, how could you be the best of your position?
2 things I have to say about that play. One, it happened in the postseason, and this all was voted on before the postseason.
That's true.
So that's why he was saved that way.
Yeah.
And 2, that same game, not only did he make that error, but when he was on base earlier in that game, he almost got picked off at first base, and he almost got picked off at third base, and then he ended up getting thrown out at home plate in that same game. So that was not a good game for Ian Kinsler at all.
No, it was not. It was not. But I just was like, really? He's the Gold Glove? There's no one better than that? A guy who can't really, who made such a bonehead play? Anyways, that's the MLB.
That is a bit surprising. Now, by the way, in the Silver Slugger Awards...
Yeah.
In the American League.
Yeah, there's some controversy.
No controversy. But first base, second base, and third base were all guys named Jose.
Yeah, that's true. But you see, the controversy is that JD Martinez won 2 Silver Slugger awards for the same season. He got an outfield Silver Slugger and a DH Silver Slugger, which I don't get at all. And I tried to read articles about it that tried to explain it, and it just did not compute in my head, and I just stopped reading, and I said, whatever, and I'm just going to move on.
That is strange. You should not win at 2 different positions, even if you play two different positions. I mean, you're telling me you could not find a third outfielder in the American League that deserves a Silver Slugger and just give Martinez the DH award?
I don't know. It doesn't make sense. The whole thing's weird.
That is strange.
The National Football League.
Well, this is becoming a really long episode, but I do want to tell you one thing about the NFL.
If you don't want to talk NFL, we don't have to do NFL at all.
No, I just want to tell you, and I should have mentioned this to you on our last episode because this happened a couple of weeks ago. Yeah. I mentioned, and I think I mentioned it on every show, that I don't watch a lot of NFL football.
You did this week because you were texting me during games.
I was?
During the Eagles game.
Oh, okay, but that's whatever.
Yeah.
But a few weeks ago on a Sunday, I went to my friend's house to watch football, and he had a few people over. Why am I mentioning this? He just bought a new house, and he basically built it from scratch, and he has his man cave down in his basement, where he's got 3 televisions mounted on the wall. And let me just tell you, the one in the middle is the biggest one, and then there's the 2 on the sides. But the 2 on the sides, those are the smaller ones, and I'm putting that in air quotes.
Yeah.
Those 2 smaller ones are both bigger than your big television at home.
That's wild.
And so on the middle screen, we were watching the Red Zone.
Oh,
and then on the other 2 screens with the sound off, we were watching 2 other games.
That's nice.
So I watched more football that one day in about 6 or 7 hours than I have in the rest of the season combined.
It's great. That's so great. Next time I'm in Toronto, can I get an invite to this guy's place?
Absolutely. But you have to be here on a Sunday.
I'll try.
Okay.
So the takeaway from last week's NFL is, if you are gambling on football, do not listen to Josh and myself. We both said Arizona was not going to cover the huge point spread, and they did. And then the Patriots lost to Tennessee, which is also like a bit of a shocker. So if you want to bet on football, maybe email us, skipandjoshshow@gmail.com, or tweet us at skipandjosh, and we'll give you our picks, and then you could do the opposite, like George Costanza.
But the thing is, okay, we were wrong, but a lot of people had the Patriots winning that game, and a lot of people had the Chiefs covering that spread. So we weren't the only people that were wrong.
Yeah. The only other thing I want to talk about in football is looking at this week, at was it week 11?
I've lost count.
Me too. Well, the Eagles have a huge game coming up.
The Eagles are done.
The Saints.
By the way, I'm going to tell you now, the Eagles are done.
Even my son, who's diehard, and always seems to try to pick out the positives, also admitted that they're done.
When you lose to the Dallas Cowboys, as bad as the Dallas Cowboys are, then you are officially done. Similarly, when the Green Bay Packers lose to the Seattle Seahawks, the Packers are also done, because the Seahawks...
you read my mind about the Seahawks-Packers game from Thursday. Put it on the board right now. Mike McCarthy will be fired the day after the season ends.
It could be, yes. He made some questionable calls in that game.
Questionable calls? It was 4th and 2, and you have Aaron Rodgers, and you punt.
Well, the only thing is, there was a lot of time left in that game. They should have got the ball back.
I know, but that
it was only because their defense
punting,
couldn't stop anything that they didn't get the ball back.
But they've already played half a season. You know how good your defense is. It's not good, right?
Yeah, no, you're right.
And all you know about your team is that you have Aaron Rodgers. So you have a choice. I can either punt the ball and have my defense try to win the game for me, or I could just give the ball to Aaron Rodgers and like, let's go with that. So you're basically saying, no, I'm gonna not give the ball to my best player. I'm gonna go another route because I'm worried about field position.
Except, I'm gonna counter that with, on that same drive where it was, I think, 4th and 2 and they decided to punt.
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers on that same drive had made 2 brutal throws.
Oh, 100%.
Like, I could make those throws. That's how bad they were.
He's not a superhero. You know, Aaron Rodgers is not automatically going to win you a game. But, like, well, I mean, obviously, like, we know what happened. They didn't get the ball back, and that was it. Right. So, like, we don't have to debate should he have, shouldn't he have, whatever.
No, of course.
It was proven. But, like,
and also there was a play earlier where the Green Bay did not challenge whether it was a catch or not, and it looked
was
like,
crazy. Right before.
It looked iffy. I saw the replay, and to be honest, since they called a catch on the field and they would have to have conclusive evidence to
know.
overturn it, I don't know that they would have been able to overturn that even if they did challenge it. But
not to challenge. I mean,
but the other mistake that McCarthy made was, how do you end up with only one timeout left in the last 4 minutes of the game?
Right.
There is no reason. I had this conversation with someone else. Each team gets 3 timeouts per half. There is no reason to use any of your timeouts before the last 3 minutes of the half.
Well, the only time they use them is usually when the play clock's going to run down and they're trying to avoid a penalty.
But even if that's going to happen, take the penalty. It's worth it to take the penalty rather than to burn one of your timeouts. Because if you're behind in the game with 3 or 4 minutes left, you need those timeouts.
Well,
if you
that's
get a
the reason
penalty
why
in the second quarter of the game and it puts you back 5 yards, who cares?
Well, that's the reason why he didn't challenge that play, because he didn't want to lose his last timeout.
Well, he should have had more timeouts left. That's the mistake that he made.
I know. What can I tell you?
You know, there are so many coaches in this league. I'm not a coach in the NFL, but there are so many coaches in the league. They have no idea how to manage the clock. That, to me, is the easiest part of coaching, and they don't know how to do it.
That's the Andy Reid school of coaching. He doesn't know how to manage the clock at all.
So many of them don't know how. Why am I getting riled up?
I don't know. It's crazy. You got so excited there. So that's football. I'll watch the Eagles-Saints. It should be one of the better games this week. Hopefully, my heart is saying Eagles are going to come out and play a great game. My head is saying the Saints are going to win by 20.
You didn't even mention the best game of the week. Kansas City and LA, which, by the way, was supposed to be played in Mexico and now is going to be played in LA.
Yeah.
That's going to be an insane game.
Yeah, should be really great. Although the Rams have looked really vulnerable the last few weeks. You know, they're still winning games, but teams are sort of starting to figure them out a little bit. Their offense is really not as dynamic, I think, as people think. It's really a run-based offense.
Have you seen?
But I mean, Kansas City doesn't play much defense, so definitely take the over.
Well, yeah,
I don't know what the over is, but take the over.
Did you see what the over/under is for that game?
No, what is it?
It's 63.
Whoa!
And I think it's going to go over. I think it's going to go over that.
63 for sure. It's going to at least be like 37-35, don't you think?
I think so.
Both teams can score 30.
Both teams can score 35 or 40.
Yeah. Before we sign off, remember, you can listen and subscribe to new and archived episodes of the Skip and Josh podcast wherever you listen. Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google, iHeartRadio, Spotify. We're everywhere. I just mentioned the email addresses, the email and Twitter handles, skipandjoshshow@gmail.com, at Skip and Josh on Twitter, and you can like and follow our Facebook page, and skipandjosh.com has all the links on how you can subscribe and get the new episodes.
We leave you with this.
So have you heard of this thing, 23andMe?
I've heard of it, yes.
Okay, so it's like a genetic test, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they'll tell you, like, you know, your ancestry, you know, how much, where your family came from, what part of the world, you know, based on your genetics. They'll tell you other things. You're more likely to do this. You're more likely to have this. And also, if other people, the more people do 23andMe and keep their profile open, you can actually find distant cousins maybe that you didn't know about or something like this, or relatives, you know?
Like Facebook.
In faraway places, yeah. So someone that I work with, he told me during this trip that I just had to Chicago, someone that I work with, his wife and her whole family did 23andMe, and she was bugging him to do it, so he finally did it, right? Mm-hmm. So he did the test, he waited his 2 weeks, he gets the results back, he gets the thing back. What does it tell him? He has a half-brother that he didn't know about. Think about this.
First of all, how accurate is this test?
Okay, but this is correct. This is, forget about accuracy. It's legit. He found out via 23andMe that he had a half brother.
How do you know that? Who knows that? Like, how does this test tell you this?
Because this half brother also did 23andMe, and they are a genetic match.
Okay, so only if the half brother actually did the test would you find out.
Yes, but the thing is, they found out the story, and this person that I know went to a cousin who also was able to contact this person because it's a bit of a long story, but he was able to find this person. He was able to find his half-brother, and they had a conversation. They found each other through social media, and they had an actual phone conversation. Turns out that my friend's father got another woman pregnant many years ago, and his father didn't know that this woman was pregnant. She left, and she moved, and she had the baby and never told anybody, and put the baby up for adoption. So my friend's half brother was adopted by another family, like, and they didn't know. But as an adopted child, you have this feeling like you want to find out where you came from. That's why he did the 23andMe test, right? And now he's found out that he has a brother from the same father.
I don't know if I would want to find out any of this stuff.
It's pretty wild. But like when you hear stories like that, I was like, what the hell? You know? So they're gonna meet up. Apparently in December they're gonna meet up in person and meet each other in person.
Okay.
So try and top that one.
I'm not going to be able to top that one. I don't know if you noticed, the Miami Marlins, they're called Miami Marlins, right? Not Florida Marlins anymore.
Yes, Miami Marlins.
They unveiled their new uniform for this coming season.
I didn't see. I'm gonna look it up right now.
So they unveiled their new uniform, and it's actually not that exciting. They have a home uniform, a road uniform, and of course they have their third alternate jersey, because every team has that now. But it's interesting that none of them are orange. And so my concern is, what is Marlins man going to wear when he goes to games now? Because they don't have an orange jersey anymore, and how is he going to stick out in the crowd?
We spend too much time talking about Marlins, man.
This is hard-hitting news. This is what we're talking about here.
Now his bright orange Marlins jersey is like vintage now.
It is vintage.
You know, it's never going to go out of style.
Is he going to get one of the new ones and wear that at games?
No, he needs a bright color.
Well, their third alternate
MO.
jersey, I think, is teal or something in that family.
Maybe he will.
So maybe he'll wear that one as the one that sticks out. But anyway,
right.
I was really worried when I heard the Marlins were getting a new uniform. I was worried about Marlins man. Not that he can't afford to go buy a new jersey. I'm sure he has the money.
Well, clearly he can. He travels all over and sits front row.
Yeah.
Sits next to Mary Hart at the Dodgers game.
By the way, in the World Series, he was only sitting in like the third row. He didn't have such good seats.
LA is tough because all the celebrities, right?
Boston was even tougher, I think.
Yeah.
So.
All right, that's the show.
That's the show.
All right, I'll talk to you next week.